So just a little bit of background just to explain what this is all about. Back during the lockdowns, I gained some weight, so I started watching weight loss YouTube channels, and that led to the YouTube algorithm recommending things like Nikocado Avocado and the topic of this video, Amberlynn Reid. Now, Amberlynn Reid runs a weight loss YouTube channel in which she gains weight and blogs her very boring life. A week after breaking up with her last girlfriend, she got a new girlfriend who she doxed. Due to that doxing, people were able to find out things about her, such as the lawsuit I'm going to discuss. None of the reaction channels have really gone into the actual lawsuit, but I keep seeing an innuendo about the content of the lawsuit, including some things that I would consider to be misinformation. Historically, Amber has always been the one that exploits her girlfriends, as documented on her YouTube channel, but with this new girlfriend, commenters expressed concerns that this time it was the other way around. So I thought maybe her court records might shed some light into the nature of their relationship, but as it turns out, there's not much there in my opinion, so let's get into it. I have decided to censor out the girlfriend's name, even though Amber has doxed her because she did not consent to being doxed by Amber, and because the lawsuit contains medical information and work history information that the audience simply doesn't need to know. So let's get into it. As you can see right off the bat, this is, quote, an action to remedy discrimination based on disability, discrimination, retaliation, and unlawful termination brought by plaintiff. So this is a case about disability discrimination. It's not a racial discrimination case, as some people have suggested online. Now, this is what her girlfriend claims happened. On and about July 1st, 2019, plaintiff began her employment as a customer service associate at a retail store. At the time of the employment, plaintiff informed her immediate supervisor that she suffered from a medical condition. As plaintiff's supervisors changed over time, they were informed by the plaintiff of her diagnosed, regarded as, and perceived disability. She was talented, blah, blah. She claims that she worked tirelessly to ensure that everything was completed on time. Now, she started working right before COVID, and when COVID started, quote, on about March 13th, 2020, defendant, the retail store gave their employees the option to work remotely due to COVID. However, because her girlfriend was in charge of onboarding a new employee for the customer service department, she was expected to travel to the office out of fear for being exposed to COVID-19, which has severely compromised her immune system and worsened her disability. She reached out to the director of operations and inquired as to whether onboarding could be done remotely. He agreed. But then changed his mind and told her that she needed to travel to the office to onboard or train the new employee. Plaintiff agreed out of fear of retaliation, so she claims. On about March, she asked whether she could work remotely, to which he agreed. And then in March 24th, because of quarantine, they decided to furlough the guy that she had just trained. As a result of the furlough, the girlfriend was the only full-time employee working at the store, which meant that she would have to take on all of the department's responsibilities and work-related tasks all by herself. On account of her disability, she asked for reasonable accommodation in the form of an hourly reduction and extra days off. She claims that despite the plaintiff's disabilities, the defendants took advantage of the plaintiff and still overworked her as much as possible. In April of 2020, she continued to ask for a day off. In April 13th, they promised her the day off for Easter, but they made her work on Easter Sunday. On April 14th, there was extra business, as the lawsuit claims, and it became impossible for her to handle the department's responsibilities all by herself, especially in light of her disability, for which the store refused to give her reasonable accommodations. She claims that she explained her concerns to the director of operations and advised him that her disability was getting worse and exacerbated as a result of receiving no reasonable accommodations. He assured her that the company would hire an extra employee to support her. On the same day, the supervisor gave her conflicting statements and told her that they were now unsure whether they would rehire the employee at this time. Finally, in May 2020, a part-time employee was hired full-time. I don't know what that means, or I guess they changed the part-time employee to full-time. Defendants informed the plaintiff that since he was hired full-time, she could take Memorial Day weekend. However, they then told her that she was unable to take the weekend off since they were still understaffed. And this got, to me, this seems legitimate because anybody who has worked retail or knows somebody who worked retail or just watches the news knows that there was retail workers were really overworked during COVID, and there were staffing problems throughout the country, really. Anyways, in June, she kept telling the director of operations that her health was getting worse. Without accommodation, she was in dire need of time off. She claimed that the stress from being overworked was the main cause of her medical conditions being aggravated and exacerbated. However, during each meeting, the director of operations told her that she would eventually be able to take time off. On or about July 9th, 2020, the plaintiff reached out to the co-founder, pleading for a day off, and clearly stated that she was suffering from declining health because of the overload of work. In July 13th, because she was a good worker, the defendants promoted her to CX manager. I don't know what that is. And her salary was increased from $42,000 to $52,000 with overtime. Now, she claims that rather than have any discussion regarding her disability or her request for accommodation, the defendants attempted to silence her by giving her a promotion. Quote, though ostensibly this was a promotion, it was an attempt to keep the plaintiff working long hours under great stress. On or about August 11th, she kept reaching out to supervisor, inquiring about a new hire and reasonable accommodations. She continued to reiterate that she was burnt out and needed time off. On or about September 1st, 2020, the director of operations retaliated and reneged on his promises for a weekend off, telling her that she was not permitted to take the day off. The number of promises for reasonable accommodations left her in a state of shock, disappointed, and declining health. Beginning on September 8th, she started working 6 days a week. Once again, she continued to address her concerns to the supervisor regarding her physical disability. Plaintiff wished she would leave, but defendants dangled plaintiff job over her head, demanding she complete her work tasks or face termination. He assured her that she would be able to take time off at the end of the year, though she was doubtful of them actually doing that. On or about September 18th, she informed them that her disability had worsened substantially and she could no longer continue working the number of hours she was currently working. At the time, she was working between 60 and 65 hours a week. On or about September 25th, she reiterated the information to the store. On September 30th, the store unlawfully terminated her via email, saying that the CX manager requires full-time hours. Given your decision to reduce your hours to part-time, we have decided that this is no longer a good fit. This letter is to inform you that this employment with the store will end as of September 30th. So, she was working a full-time job, and they fired her because she wanted to work part-time. Okay, so that's her complaint. Now, after a lawyer filed the lawsuit, he didn't serve the store with a lawsuit, which he's supposed to do that. They're supposed to get served. And the case was almost dismissed, but it seems like they did eventually serve the store with the paperwork. Okay, now this is the response to a lawsuit by the store. I'm not going to go into each denial of the allegations because that would take forever. But the key ones really are that, for example, on March 5th, 2020, she claimed that she had an issue because of her disability. But the store claims that in reality she went to urgent care for her tonsils. So they're claiming that she's lying about that specific date. Another point that they deny is that she claimed that she got a $10,000 a year raise, while when in reality she was being paid hourly and her pay was increased to $25 per hour. This is one of the really big problems with the lawsuit, at least for her side. Quote, she claims that she was fired. The store claims that she voluntarily resigned. And in the letter in which she resigned, she claimed that she was unable to handle the workload of school and a managerial position. She did not claim that she was quitting because of a disability or anything like that. It was because she couldn't handle school and the managerial position. And in the defenses is where it gets controversial. The store claims that, quote, defendants cannot be found liable for disability discrimination because plaintiff was not a qualified individual with a disability. In 25, she cannot be found. The store cannot be found liable for disability discrimination because plaintiff is unable to show that she suffered from any disability as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act, as amended, New York State Human Rights Law, or New York City Human Rights Law, and that defendants cannot be found liable because she is unable to show that the defendants knew or should have known that she suffered from any disability within the meaning of the American with Disabilities Act, etc. So store is claiming both that A, she did not have a disability, and B, that they didn't know if she did have a disability, that they didn't know that she had a disability. Now, in October, they had a mediation conference, which could be attended by telephone or video conference. A lot of people claimed that her girlfriend had to leave the state in order to go to that conference, but as you can see, she could simply go by telephone or just Zoom in. So that theory doesn't make sense to me. And at that conference, they reached a settlement. Now, the problem is we don't know the details of the settlement. They might have paid her a little bit of money, a lot of money, or she could have ended up having to pay the store for lawyers and everything if her case was really that bad. But since we don't know what's going on, we don't know the details of the settlement, and they're probably confidential. There's no way of knowing if she really was faking the disability or if she did have a disability and they were discriminating against her. Maybe we'll find out some point, but based on what's on the court record, it's impossible to say anything about the truth of what happened there. Personally, I think some details that Amber has leaked suggest that she does have a disability. For example, the cigarettes would kind of jive with the idea that she does have this condition. But who knows? Who knows?